Hi everyone, come and join us to paint Macnose. He's quite a character, he's a gorgeous little cow, so we're going to paint him today. Join us now. First things first, we need to cover the nose area of our cow. So the nose area is in a pale beach brown color, peachy color, which is made up of red. I'm going to mix it in my big mixing area here. It's easier to control. Bit of red, bit of yellow, more yellow than that, touch of black, and quite a bit of white. When you mix that all together, I've got some browns already appearing here. I need more of a peachy color than that, so I'm going to take a little bit more yellow. I don't mind mixing a few browns. I'm going to use them all. Not quite got the right colors there, and a lot of white. That's more the color I want. Bit more red in that one. There we go. So a mix of red, yellow, white, and a very small touch of black, and it gives you that peachy kind of color, a brown color. I'm going to cover about a third of the canvas up, and the majority of the canvas, so where I put that dot there, and the majority of the canvas, I'm going to put across the bottom, I'm going to put an arch. Like that, color it all in with the peachy color. That's going to be his nose. So I've left around about the same kind of space either side. His nose is going to be more, he's facing more to the right. So there's more of a slope on the left-hand side, more of a vertical on the right-hand side. So if you're coming straight down on the right-hand side, it's kind of sweeping up from the left to the right and down. It covers about a third of the canvas. So that's his nose. We can go and tidy it up just now, but not necessarily at the moment. I'm going to cover as much of the canvas as possible to start because the background needs to dry before we can put his hair on. So the rest of him going up into the top left-hand corner will be a darker brown. So where I've got all my browns mixed up, I need to keep that peach, so I will keep it there. I'm going to mix some more brown, red, yellow, touch of white, bit of black. Cool. I've overdone it again. Put too much black in there again. So much more red. Little bit of black goes a long way, as you can see from the stuff that I'm doing. So a little bit of red, a little bit more yellow. That's more like it. That's the brown I want to use for the rest. It's quite a dark brown for the rest of his head. So you can see the peachy color there compared to the darker brown color there. This now, what I want to do is I want to give the background of his face from the top of the canvas. I'm going to sweep it down and meet his nose about there. So about there on his nose is where we're going to go. Paint the whole of the left-hand side of this canvas now. And it doesn't matter if you get varied colors. We're painting over these anyway. This is just background. So a little bit of water in that. And what I like to do is work quite fast and cover as much space as possible. Acrylics dry very quickly, but this is so that you don't get bogged down in detail until the very last minute. Detail is for the last minute. Right, the whole of my canvas now is covered. Where his face is going to go, I'm also going to give him a little bit of brown around his nose area there. Join up his snout. Make that more of a slope on the left-hand side. Oop, there we go. that same brown, in this part of his nose here, I'm going to put a blob of that brown coming down on the right-hand side of his nose like that. That'll be where his nostril comes in on that side. When you've got the majority of his face painted like that, I'm going to wash that brush off. I'm going to cover all the rest of the canvas here with a pale blue. So for that, I'm actually not going to mess this area up. I'm keeping that for my browns. I'm going to mix my pale blue into this little mixing area here, which means I need to take some more white, get myself a pale blue. I want to leave an area for the horn. So for the area for the horn, it's going to come from about, I'd say about 2 inches from the top of his head. And I'm going to swing that line up for his horn up to the right-hand side of the canvas like that. This is the sky in this V shape at the top here. To paint all of that sky in. You can always go and fill in all the little gaps later. As I said, get the majority of the paint down on the canvas while you can, as fast as you can. The bottom of his, in fact, you know what? I'm going to leave about an inch of space for the top of his horn, which is going to remain white. The bottom of his horn swings up like that. It's a thin bit there that's going to remain white. Somehow I've got black on there. How did I do that? Let's get rid of that black. Make some more pale blue. Paint over that. So the rest of the canvas, all the way down to the right-hand side, is going to be in my sky blue. You can make this as smooth as you like. You can make it as interesting as far as color blend is concerned as you like as well. So if you wanted to, you could make it go darker towards his nose area. The initial canvas I painted completely light blue, but here I think I'm going to be a bit creative. Paint a darker blue all the way down. So that is the background. Smooth up some of those edges while I can. But once you've got all the hairy bits in, you don't actually see the sky in the background. The most important bits are his hair, our Highland cow hair. So that's all the background of our cow in. So I'm going to wash that brush off now. I don't need that brush anymore. That brush, the big one, is going to the side. You can either use an angled shader, which is quite nice to do hair, or if you've got a round brush like this, that's also good. I'm going to use a slightly bigger round brush if I have one on the side here. I don't actually, I think that's the 9. The 9 is good enough. Okay, 9 round brush is what I'm using. And I'm going to do his nostril area. So for his nostrils, they're like commas facing inwards. So his nostrils are quite dark. I'm going to use a bit of the black and a bit of the red to make a dark brown. Black and red to make a dark brown. You can always make it darker afterwards. Add in those final touches. His nostril is almost middle of the canvas. If you look at where his nostril goes, it's kind of in the middle of this canvas here. I'm going to put a big circle for his nostril, about there on his snout. Quite a big circle. We're looking closely into this beautiful nostril area. There we go. You all right? Everything okay? And when you've done that circle there, as I said, it's like a comma. So if you take this brush and join a line up to that nostril like that, that's kind of what happens with a cow's nose. It's like a little comma. Cool. All right, the next one. This is a 6 shape. We're looking halfway across his nostril, so it's not quite the same as this. We're going to do an oval on this side of his nose like that. And this one goes slightly up. It doesn't go higher than the rest of this nostril here, but it's like a bit of a 6 shape on that side. So it'll be that nostril there. And when you've done that, what I'm going to do is take pure black, wash my brush off, take pure black, and put the shadows into this nostril. So the shadow is across the top of the nostril, like that, in black. And the shadow on this side corresponds on the inner side of that nostril there, and that's in black. The highlight of that nostril, I'm going to leave it till the last, because when we start doing all of the hair, you'll find a color that actually highlights that nostril quite nicely. That's just to give us an idea of where the shadow goes. Okay, the bottom area of his snout is also accented. So out of these browns, I'm going to take a mid brown, I'd say, between those two. A mid brown, pick up some of that color. And the middle of his nose here is going to have a bit of a shadow on it. Let me mix a bit more of that color because mine's already dried, unbelievably. There we go. So I've got a slightly lighter color than this. And what I'm doing is I'm painting around his nostrils like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. Try and blend it up a little bit into that section of his nose anyway, and you do that with a drier brush. Like so. So he's starting to get some definition on his nose. Let's do a bit of definition across the top of his nose as well. Fill in some of that area there. You can see some of his nose is starting to appear here now. The last thing we'll do is we'll go and highlight across the top of his nose and put on some hair. If you want to blend this a bit more in, it's acrylics, so I don't blend it as well as you would if it was watercolor or oil. But what you can do is put water on your brush, take a bit of water on your brush, and then go over the edge of your acrylic, your brown, with a slightly watery brush and blend those two colors in. You see what I've done there? Blend it across the middle. Do it across here as well. Or you can take some of the lighter color again, if you've still got some in your palette, and go back over those edges with the lighter color. Blends it all in. So you can either use the darker color slightly drier, or the lighter color, slightly drier, and go over the darker color with the light, go over the lighter color with the dark. It'll blend. It doesn't need to be too blended. The beauty of this picture is it's actually got a lot of wet work. So the colors blend into each other as we go. I'm going to do the horn first before we do anything else on the head itself. So for the horn, I've got this nice white swathe here, which is the top of his horn. I want to start emphasizing the bottom bit of his horn. So for that, I'm going to use a darker color blue. And I'm going to start putting some darker blue underneath this white. This is making the horn a little bit thicker now. And with your acrylics, if you have a drier brush, not so much water on it, you can use the dry brush technique to blend in and up slightly into the white area. I don't know if you can see the edge of that sky as well as it looks here. The video is not as clear as I would like it. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just go and highlight the top of there so that you can see the top of his horn a little bit better. So the white of his horn is showing. So I've put a little bit of a darker blue underneath. Can use an even darker blue. And even add a touch of black. Not a lot. Touch of black, and put that on like so. My sky should be dry as well. If your sky is dry, wash the brush off. I'm going to make a pale yellow. Make sure that there's no black left on that brush. Take a pale yellow, and the whole of the underside of his horn I'm going to highlight with a pale yellow. So his horn has got a lot thicker. I can blend that up as well. Take that slightly into the black or the gray area, blending it up. And that's really enough for the horn. You can see the horn there on the sky, but it's not emphasized. You can just see that your cow has got a horn. I'm going to put some shadow on this side of his face as part of the background. We can either do it with our big brush again. Now that this is dry, yep, let's put a bit of shadow in there. So what I want to do is take a touch of blue and a touch of red in there, make it a purple. So it's a dark purple, red, blue. And with that, I'm going to put some shadow into the left-hand side of his face, going down around his nose as well, with that blue. You can add more black if you want to. I like these mixes of colors, like so. So that goes into that part of his face, leaving some of the brown showing, but it's in that corner of his face here. It's kind of where his eye would be if we were painting his eyes. The side of the face that goes off, round, and into shadow, left-hand side. And then I'm back to my big brush, my big round brush again. And this brush now we're using our various browns. I think I'm going to start with the darker brown. So make a darker brown again, which is the red and the black. Make that nice dark brown, and we'll build it up from dark to light. So take a dark brown. I want his hair to come over his eye and flow off this way. So it's a nice long sweeping motion. I'm going to do that with. Put a few long sweeping strands of hair. They are going to go off the cow's face and into the sky area. You don't have to make them go all the way from the top. Because we're building up all of this hair, as long as he's got hair flicking off and into the sky area and over his face, and makes a few more of those dark strands come down this side. You can see I'm using long sweeping strokes for his hair, the background hair, to make a bit more of that dark brown, the black and the red, like that. Have some going over the others. Remember, this is all background still. Not too many. That's good enough now. Make sure they go over the top of the head as well, so they go off the edge of your paper or your canvas, whatever it is. And I'm starting to make them flow off and in and out of his hair, his face line here. Okay, there's not a lot there. And now I'm going to go to a lighter color. I'm going to go to a lighter brown, which will blend in a little bit with what we've already got there. So I'm going to take some of these lighter colors, mix a little bit more. And start using some of the lighter colors on top of those ones. Still using long sweeping strokes, like that. You won't see many of those. Because they blend in with the color of his nose, actually. But it's to take them over these dark stripes that we've already done, the dark hair bits that we've already done, because that's now building the color up. Next, I'm going to take plain red. And with plain red, I'm going to do the same thing. And you just wiggle your red over his face. You can see I'm making the long sweeping. And it's not, the hair is actually fairly curly, so some of it can be a little bit of a wiggle off and over his head, like that. See, I haven't done that many, but it's already starting to build up. Put some over his shadow area now, this red. Take that over his shadow area, one or two of them. That's starting to cover up over the edge of his shadow. I'm going to take plain blue for the next ones. And put some plain blue hairy bits. Make some come over this side of his face. So his hair's starting to split over his nose. As you start painting on top of the other lines, you'll see your paintbrush picks up the other colors and starts blending them in, which is really a nice effect for this cow. So he's going to have hair that does that. Lobs of hair. And that's enough blue for me. Now we're going to go lighter. I'm going to paint clean the brush off and paint just plain yellow. And with that just plain yellow, I'm going to go right from the top of his head, bring a nice piece of hair coming down like that. This was all background. So these lighter colors are actually the hair that is going to show on top of everything else. So where you put these lighter stripes will be the most important bits of his hair. One or two coming down the side. You can see it's blending into the other colors, which gives it a very, very nice effect. And that's enough. What have I got? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 yellow stripes. It's enough. You don't need too much more. The background of his face, the color of the background of his face is the shadow underneath all of these light colors that we're going to start putting in now. Now I can use a pale yellow, so not quite white yet, so I'm adding in some white into my yellow to make it a paler yellow. A little bit more white. See, I've got all these beautiful brown colors all over the place here. Paler yellow. Now these ones, let's see what I want to do. I want to make some of these go over the edge like that, flick up. It's got curly hair, my cow. And flick up that way. These lighter ones are going to blend beautifully now into the blues and the yellows and the reds that you've got underneath. There's a piece of hair going that way. This is still not white, it's pale yellow. Let's make 1 or 2 coming and flicking off there, like that. Maybe 1 or 2 that go over his horn, up into the sky at the top here. You don't even need a lot of these. The background lines that you've already done has built up enough already. Let's just fill in 1 or 2 more pieces of blue maybe on that side there. And then some lighter ones maybe coming off that side. 1 or 2 lighter ones. I've got enough hair on his face here. It is going into shadow this side, so I don't want too many light ones here. Then most of the light ones are going to be this side, on the right-hand side. So with the ones on the right-hand side now, if you make plain white ones on that side, and it'll blend in with the other colors going below, that'll just highlight this side of his face a little bit more, and across the top of his head here. A few more white ones across the top of his head. Sun's shining from the top there. I'm going to put some highlights across the top of his nose now. And that peachy color that we put on the top of his nose, I want a lighter color than that. So if yours is already quite light, then maybe plain white would do. I'm going to use a pale yellow, one of my many pale yellow colors that I've painted, that I've got in my palette. And across the top of his nose here and across here, I'm going to put a few highlights. Like that. And some white highlights across the top of his nose. Can you see around that top area where you've done shadow? Mm-hmm. On the top side of that, correspondingly, will be white. I'm going to do that on the right-hand side of his nose here as well. That's where the sun's shining. So all the way down the right-hand side of his nose there, around his nostril. Just going to give a little bit of a white highlight, maybe there too. across that top section there. Same brush, using just the tip, and either white or pale yellow. You can use a smaller brush, but this has been quite a rough picture to start with. So using this brush, I'm going to put my hair. See, he's got a hairy nostril here. His hair flicks out and to the left. From the edge of his nostril, where his nozzle, where you've still got some peach showing. That's where my hair is going to go over and flick out to the left to give him a bit of a hairy nose on that side. I'm going to do the same on the right hand side. Just give him some hairs coming off the side of his face. Now, I don't know if you can see that because it's in the shade there, but you see the hair coming off the side of his face. There's just a few flicks with this brush off the edge. It gives you the idea that he's got hair coming off the side of his nose, his muzzle. You can do some going into this brown area too. You don't want to make it look like he's got a shock of hair coming off. So don't do too much. 1 or 2 strokes there. Just an indication. Let's give him some more. Across that side of his nose. This is all the soft downy fur off the edge of his nose. And then I think for the highlight area under his nostril here, we've painted this brown. I'm going to use a bit of blue. Didn't even wash my brush off. Just put a touch of blue in there, because then that ties in with his hair. One thing I did with the original picture is I took his hair off the side of his face here and made it flow around his nose. You can do that too. Pale yellow. Let's do some in pale yellow. So in the close-up, he's got some hair flowing around the side of his nose. You can see none of these brush strokes are detailed and perfect. Time for detail is now. So you've got the basics here. If you don't like it as rough as this, now what you do is you go and tidy it up. Add in the color that you need to finish off bits. The picture's basically done. So now it's a detail thing. If you want to highlight some areas and shadow some areas, that's what you do now. But the first thing you do is put it up against a wall far away from you, go and take a break, come back and look at it, and you'll see the areas that need to be fixed, changed, added to, taken away. My horn area, I'm happy with the way it looks. If you look at that, very rough. The actual horn area is very rough, but I'm quite happy with the way it looks, because from far, the impression I get is that there's sun shining on the top of that horn, and then there's the middle bit of the horn has got a bit of dark shadow to show that it goes round, and then there's a bit of highlight underneath the horn as well. Still some sun shining through and around that horn. Okay, well that's it. It's quick as that. So hope you enjoyed that one. Good. Okay, we'll see you next time.
Take care.